This is a brief introduction to working with layers in Photoshop. This is the Photoshop panel, and alongside it here, I have a series of JPEGs, a blue JPEG, a green JPEG, and a red JPEG. If I drag this blue JPEG, which is simply in a separate file, nothing to do with Photoshop, onto Photoshop itself, you notice that it's just appeared in Photoshop. Now, it's got these toggle points on it, and with these toggle points, one can adjust the size of that blue square. And if I press Enter, it's now accepted into Photoshop. You'll notice that on the right-hand side, in the Layers panel here, it says blue. I'd called the JPEG blue, and Photoshop has picked that up. So we've now got a blue layer sitting on top of a white background. I'll repeat exactly the same process. I'll take this green JPEG, which, as I say, is just in a standard file of photographs on my computer desktop, and drop that into Photoshop. Likewise, I'll make it a bit smaller, and I'll press Enter, and it's now accepted into Photoshop. And you'll see that this green layer is sitting on top of the blue layer in the Layers panel. And because the green is now selected, I can move it around the screen. And it's moving across on top of that blue layer. I'll now do exactly the same for red. So repeat the process exactly the same. Here's a red JPEG. I take the red JPEG, I drag it across into the Photoshop panel. It's sitting there. I'm going to adjust the size of it and enter it. And we now have in the Layers panel red, green, and blue. And we have here on the Photoshop screen a red and a green and a blue sitting on top of each other on a white background. Now, layers in Photoshop is absolutely fundamental. Once one's mastered layers, really, that's the basis of all work in Photoshop, and it's what makes Photoshop work. So if we look at this Layers panel, and I take this red here, and I select that, if I drag it down the panel, you notice that it's now gone to the bottom of the pile, and correspondingly, if I move this green panel around on top of it, you can see it's on top of it there. And the blue there is beneath the green, but it's actually above the red. You see that? So in terms of understanding layers, it's a very useful thing to just play around with three colors like this. They don't have to be colors, they can be any three photographs. And practice selecting. Here's the red, and I'm going to move the red above the blue. And if we move the green out of the way so you can see what happens, you see the red is now above the blue there. And you can see that that's moving above the blue, and that the green is above all of them in that order there. So follow with a subsequent video for seeing the next stage in working on from here.